So this is Dr. Dave Barnhart with Behavioral Sciences of Alabama. And I'm talking with Dr. Dave Barnhart with Behavioral Sciences of Alabama and Birmingham.
Yeah,
How are you today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
So you've been conducting the Adult OCD Support Group for
Yeah.
Behavioral Sciences for a number of weeks
Mhm.
now. And what I'd like for you to do is to talk about if you could take maybe 3 or 4 or 2 or whatever number of takeaways or main benefits there are from participating in an OCD support group, specifically
Yeah,
an OCD support group.
absolutely. Well, I'll first say that, actually my group therapy class, the one that I took was, I was not excited about it. And then when we actually did it, I found it a lot of fun. um, and so I've been looking forward to doing this OCD group.
It was kind of a group therapy class, doing group therapy class.
Yeah, exactly. It was. So I mean, I felt like I got the benefit of it also while learning about it. So yeah, I would say for the OCD folks, especially, I think one of the big things with group therapy, the aims of it is the universalization. So the idea is that other people have your experiences, right? And for OCD folks, I think just seeing that other people have similar struggles. Now, this is not exactly universal, but 2% of the population, that's millions of people.
Just millions of people. And I think that one of the things that people express with OCD is that they feel like they're the only ones that have these issues, like they are presented to them, that they're the only ones.
Right. Well, and I think, yeah, also the fact that was it 17 years the average before someone gets diagnosed with OCD, so they're struggling with this a long time, feeling alone.
Yeah.
And then, when they start talking about it, it might sound, they start thinking, oh, I'm the only one who thinks this way. So just simply hearing that other people have that kind of experience, I think, is important.
We try to emphasize that OCD is not an adjective. It's not an adjective. Oh, I'm a little OCD about this. Turns out that it's a lot more complex and debilitating than the average person really understands.
Yeah.
Which is probably part of why it doesn't get diagnosed. We don't talk about it that much. People don't really have an exposure to what it is. What else do you think? What would be another benefit?
Well, I think another big one is simply that hearing from other people who are going through the same struggles, you might be able to hear harder truths or different things from them than you might be able to hear from a therapist. Kind of like in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, they talk about how you might believe something another recovering alcoholic says, but you might have a hard time hearing it from someone who isn't alcoholic. So just because they're not going through the same thing. So I know I can be stubborn. If my wife tells me something, I might not listen to her. But if my therapist tells me something, I'll listen to that. And so part of that is just getting through that wall of disbelief. So, or hearing it from a peer sometimes makes things easier to, or more understandable.
Before we started talking and recording what we're saying, we talked about exposure. And exposure is a paradoxical treatment. People typically go to therapy to feel better, and they're not expecting to do exposure and response prevention.
Right.
Exposure meaning that we actually face the thing that is anxiety or provoking or emotionally disturbing for
Mhm.
somebody. And it turns out that repeated exposure even has an impact of helping people habituate, or it reduces the power of the triggers, the anxiety or the emotionally disturbing triggers, so they can actually begin to live with those triggers when they occur.
Yeah.
Would you talk about that a little bit? I think maybe we could wind it up with that. That's kind of a big deal. So,
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think simply being part of the group is an exposure, because you're going and talking about whatever it is that, and you probably have some anxiety about
mhm.
sharing that. For some people, it is social. Some of them, they do have social anxiety. So going and being part of a group, that is part of the exposure. And for others, retelling or
Mm.
um, reliving something, telling about an experience, that counts as an exposure. So in group, you're getting exposure um, to whatever your trigger is. Yeah.
And you get accustomed to talking about it. Um,
Mhm.
so it helps to articulate the problem and then get feedback from and encouragement from other people that have the same lived experience.
Absolutely. I think that's also important. We've talked about this in group. It's also important for reducing stigma. So
Mm.
people get used to talking about it. Like, that's how you reduce stigma. You can't reduce it without talking about it.
That's right. Yeah, it does turn out people start becoming more open, even with their own family. Uh,
Hmm.
they share things that have not been shared with a spouse or a parent for years, and it's not been discussed. And it comes out as a result of having articulated that in a group experience.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we're encouraging people to participate in OCD support groups, which is the reason we did this.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Well, I think you get a lot of bang for your buck. I mean, the fact is, there are more people who get reached, and they get more therapy time because it's done in a group. I just think it's a smart way to do things.
yes, very efficient. Well,
Mhm.
Dave, thanks for your work.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll see you later.
See ya.
Take care.